Let's face it, we all know that COVID-19 is the absolute worst thing to happen in 2020. But even then, that pandemic is only a mild flu when compared to the deadliest ones in history. That's why today we'll be taking a look at the most interesting and deadliest pandemics to ever strike mankind. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and to turn on notifications for more videos like today's. Without further ado, let's begin. In 10th place, the Great Plague of Milan was an outbreak of the bubonic plague that happened between 1629 and 1631. Symptoms for the bubonic plague appear 1 to 7 days after exposure. These symptoms include fever, headaches, and vomiting. Swollen and painful lymph nodes occur in the area closest to where the bacteria entered the skin. Occasionally, the swollen lymph nodes may break open. The plague was the cause of the Black Death that swept through Asia, Europe, and Africa in the 14th century and killed an estimated 50 million people. This was about 25 to 60% of the European population. The three types of plague are the result of the route of infection: bubonic plague, septicemic plague, and pneumonic plague. Bubonic plague is mainly spread by infected fleas from small animals. It may also result from exposure to the body fluids from a dead plague-infected animal. However, there were some places that were spared from the destruction and death caused by the plague, such as Ferrara in northern Italy. Next up, we have the Hong Kong flu, a flu pandemic whose outbreak in 1968 and 1969 killed an estimated 1 million people all over the world. Similar to COVID-19, this one also originated in China. It was caused by an H3N2 strain of the influenza A virus, descended from the H2N2 through antigenic shift, a genetic process in which genes from multiple subtypes reasserted to form a new virus. The first record of the outbreak in Hong Kong appeared on 13th July 1968. By the end of July of '68, extensive outbreaks were reported in Vietnam and Singapore. It spread to northern Australia, Europe, and the Philippines, and even returned after subsiding several times. The same virus returned the following years. A year later, in late 1969 and early 1970 and in 1972. The total worldwide death toll is estimated to have been in the region of 1 million people. In 8th place, we have the cholera outbreak in India back in 1817. Symptoms may range from none to mild to severe. Cholera pandemics have been happening since that date, and 6 of the 7 major pandemics originated in India, which were exacerbated due to trade and military routes over the years. Cholera is caused by the bacterium Vibrio cholerae. The virus causes severe diarrhea and is spread through raw sewage, which creates a vicious cycle of infection in areas experiencing an outbreak. The classic symptom is large amounts of watery diarrhea that lasts a few days. Vomiting and muscle cramps may also occur. Diarrhea can be so severe that it leads within hours to severe dehydration and electrolyte imbalance. This may result in sunken eyes, cold skin, decreased skin elasticity, the wrinkling of hands and feet. Dehydration can cause the skin to turn bluish. Symptoms start 2 to 5 days after exposure. The Antonine Plague, known as the Plague of Galen, is in 7th place. It was brought to the world by Roman Empire troops that were coming back from the Near East. This plague can possibly be smallpox or measles and may have also claimed the life of Roman Emperor Lucius Verus. The disease broke out again 9 years later and caused up to 2,000 deaths a day in Rome. 1/4 of those who were affected, which gives the disease a mortality rate of about 25%. The total deaths have been estimated at 5 million, and the disease killed as much as 1/3 of the population in some areas and devastated the Roman army. In our 6th place, we have the Third Plague, another bubonic plague pandemic. However, this one began in Yunnan, China in 1855. This episode of bubonic plague spread to all inhabited continents and ultimately led to more than 12 million deaths in India and China, with about 10 million killed in India alone. According to the World Health Organization, the pandemic was considered active until 1960, when worldwide casualties dropped to 200 per year. The first was primarily bubonic and was carried around the world through ocean-going trade, through transporting infected persons, rats, and cargoes harboring fleas. The second, more virulent strain was primarily pneumonic in character, with a strong person-to-person contagion. This strain was largely confined to Asia, in particular Manchuria and Mongolia. In 5th place, the HIV pandemic, Africa. The HIV pandemic in Africa emerged in Congo in the late 1970s, and supposedly it had jumped from chimpanzees to humans. In the countries of sub-Saharan Africa most affected, AIDS has raised death rates and lowered life expectancy among adults between the ages of 20 and 49 by about 20 years. Furthermore, the life expectancy in many parts of Africa is declining largely as a result of the HIV/AIDS epidemic, with life expectancy in some countries reaching as low as 34 years. The reason for this is that HIV transmission is most likely in the first few weeks after infection, and is therefore increased when people have more than one sexual partner in the same time period. In most of the developed world outside Africa, this means HIV transmission is high among prostitutes and other people who may have more than one sexual partner concurrently. Within the cultures of sub-Saharan Africa, it is relatively common for both men and women to be carrying on sexual relationships with more than one person, which promotes HIV transmission. Fourth place, the Justinian Plague. It just seems like Romans can't catch a break from plagues and pandemics, as the plague of Justinian in our fourth place clearly demonstrates. This pandemic afflicted the Byzantine Empire, the Sasanian Empire, and port cities around the Mediterranean due to merchant rats that carried the plague. The plague of Justinian was one of the deadliest pandemics in history, resulting in the deaths of an estimated 25 to 100 million people during 2 centuries of recurrence, a death toll equivalent to as much as half of Europe's population at the time of the first outbreak. The cause of the plague was the same as the Black Death, a bacterium known as Yersinia pestis. Coming in the third place of our list, we have the Spanish flu, also known as the 1918 flu pandemic. Lasting from January 1918 to December 1920, it infected 500 million people, about a third of the world's population at the time. The death toll is estimated to have been anywhere from 17 to 50 million, and possibly as high as 100 million, making it one of the deadliest pandemics in human history. Most influenza outbreaks disproportionately kill the very young and the very old, with a higher survival rate for those in between. But the Spanish flu pandemic resulted in a higher than expected mortality rate for young adults. Scientists offer several possible explanations for the high mortality rate of the 1918 influenza pandemic. This flu killed more people in 24 weeks than HIV/AIDS killed in 24 years. However, it killed a much lower percentage of the world's population than the Black Death, which lasted for many more years. Next up on our list, we have New World smallpox. This strain of smallpox was the first strain brought by the Europeans to the New World. Simply by Christopher Columbus bringing this disease to the Americas during his voyages triggered one of the worst world pandemics of all times, as most Native Americans and South American natives had no type of immunity to these diseases. Some believe that the death of 90 to 95% of the native population of the New World was caused by Old World diseases. It is suspected that smallpox was the chief culprit and responsible for killing nearly all of the native inhabitants of the Americas. For more than 200 years, this disease affected all New World populations, mostly without intentional European transmission. In the final place of our list, earning the spot for world's worst pandemic ever, we have the Black Death, also known as the Plague. It's the most fatal pandemic in human history, with deaths up high in the numbers of 200 million in Eurasia and North Africa. The plague created religious, social, and economic upheavals, with profound effects on the course of European history. The Black Death probably originated in Central Asia or East Asia, from where it traveled along the Silk Road, reaching Crimea by 1347. It took 200 years for Europe's population to recover to its previous level. Outbreaks of the plague occurred at various locations around the world until the early 20th century. If you thought COVID-19 was bad, then these guys were far worse during their time. What did you think of these plagues? Let us know in the comments. Also, don't forget to leave our video a like, share it with your friends, and also subscribe to our channel to receive more interesting video content like today's. Hey, we hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.